She stood in the doorway of a Mafia boss's study at midnight, heart hammering, about to speak words that could get her killed. Your Capo has sold you out. Rolando Greco didn't even look up. To him, she was just the maid, invisible, irrelevant, 3 years of cleaning his blood-stained floors and he'd never once asked her name. But Priscilla had heard everything. The phone call in Italian they thought she couldn't understand. The hit was planned for Thursday. The 15-year brother who was about to put a bullet in his back. Rolando dismissed her with a wave. Stick to cleaning, he said. 2 days later, the restaurant exploded in gunfire. And by the time he realized the invisible woman had tried to save his life, it was already too late. Now wounded, paranoid, and surrounded by traitors, he had only one person left to trust. The maid he never saw coming. Before we continue, welcome back my beautiful family and friends. If you are hooked in and ready to enjoy the story, click subscribe and let me know in the comment section where you are watching from because tomorrow I'll be giving you an interesting story such as this one and you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. Thursday night, Enzo was saying in Italian, his tone different from the meeting, sharper, colder. When he arrives at the restaurant, make it look like the bratva. Priscilla froze, her hand on the door frame. The old man's become a liability, Enzo continued. Too careful, too slow. The Russians are offering triple if we deliver them the Eastern Territories. After Thursday, they're ours. And so is everything else. Priscilla's Italian was flawless, a gift from her grandmother, Antonella, who'd fled Sicily in 1947 and married a black man in Alabama, scandalizing both their families. Nana had taught her the language along with recipes and stories, never imagining it would one day let her granddaughter eavesdrop on murder. The call ended. Footsteps approached the door. Priscilla moved quickly, pushing her cleaning cart down the hall, her mind racing. She'd just heard a man plan to kill his boss. She'd heard Rolando Greco, the man who'd never once asked her name in 3 years, marked for death by the man he trusted most. She should stay quiet. She should stay invisible. Speaking up meant being seen, and being seen meant being vulnerable. But staying quiet made her part of it. That night, as Priscilla lay in her small room in the staff quarters, a converted garage apartment with walls so thin she could hear the other staff moving around, she stared at the ceiling and thought about voice. About silence. About the years she'd spent being careful, being small, being safe. She thought about her grandmother's stories of Sicily, where women's voices had been stolen for generations, where strength had to be hidden to survive. She thought about Zoe, her beautiful, brilliant girl who'd never learned to make herself small, who spoke up in class and challenged professors and believed her voice mattered. What would you do if you knew speaking up could cost you everything, but staying silent could cost someone their life? Drop your thoughts below. And Priscilla realized she'd already made her choice. The study was dark except for the amber glow of the desk lamp when Priscilla finally gathered enough courage to knock. It was past midnight. The estate had settled into its nighttime rhythm. Guards at the gates, security cameras sweeping the grounds, the kind of silence that felt more dangerous than peaceful. Her hand trembled as her knuckles touched the heavy wooden door. Avanti! Rolando's voice came from inside, distracted, automatic. She pushed the door open slowly. He sat behind his mahogany desk, reading glasses perched on his nose, papers spread before him like a general surveying battle plans. He didn't look up. Priscilla stood in the doorway, her heart hammering so hard she was certain he could hear it. She'd rehearsed this moment 100 times in her head over the past 2 hours. Every version ended badly, with her fired, or worse. But Zoe's voice echoed in her mind. Mom, you always tell me to do what's right, even when it's hard. Mr. Greco, she said quietly. He made a small sound of acknowledgement but still didn't raise his eyes from the document he was reading. His hand moved across the page, making notes in the margin. "Sir, I need to tell you something." Her voice was steadier than she felt. "It's important. Leave it with Maria in the morning," he said dismissively, referring to the head housekeeper. "Whatever needs restocking or repairing can wait. It's not about supplies." She took one step into the room, crossing a threshold that felt monumentally significant. "It's about Thursday." That got his attention. His pen paused. He looked up over his glasses, and for the first time in 3 years of working in his home, Rolando Greco actually looked at her. His expression was not unkind, but it was utterly blank, the way one might look at a stranger who'd interrupted an important task. "Who are you?" he asked, not rudely, but with genuine confusion. The question hit her like a slap, even though she'd expected it. 3 years. 3 years of cleaning his home, washing his sheets, preparing his coffee exactly how he liked it. 2 sugars, no cream. 3 years of being present in his life every single day. "Priscilla Kings, sir. I work here. I clean." Right. He waved a hand vaguely. "What about Thursday?" She took a breath. This was it. The moment where she stopped being invisible and became real, for better or worse. "Your capo has sold you out," she whispered. The words hung in the air between them like smoke. Rolando stared at her, his face unreadable. Then, slowly, he removed his glasses and set them down on the desk with deliberate care. "Excuse me." "I heard him," Priscilla said, her voice gaining strength even as her legs felt weak. "Tonight, on the phone. He was speaking Italian. He's planning something for Thursday night, at a restaurant. He wants to make it look like the Russians did it." Rolando leaned back in his chair, studying her with an expression that shifted from confusion to something that looked almost like amusement. Not cruel amusement. More like the patient tolerance one might show a child who'd claimed to see monsters. "You speak Italian?" he asked. "My grandmother was Sicilian. From Palermo." "And you think you heard Enzo?" He said the name with the familiarity of 15 years of brotherhood. "Planning to, what? Kill me?" "Yes, sir." He was quiet for a long moment, his fingers drumming slowly on the desk. Priscilla watched his face, trying to read the calculation happening behind his eyes. She saw the moment he made his decision. "Do you know what Enzo means to me?" Rolando asked softly. "Do you understand what you're accusing him of?" "I understand that I heard what I heard. Enzo Catalano has been my right hand since before you were born. He's saved my life. He's the godfather too." Rolando stopped himself, old grief flickering across his features. "He's family. Blood. Do you understand what that means in my world?" "I understand that blood doesn't always mean loyalty," Priscilla said quietly. "And I understand that I wouldn't risk coming here, risk telling you this, if I wasn't certain." Rolando stood, walking around the desk to face her more directly. He wasn't a tall man, but his presence filled space. Priscilla forced herself not to step back, not to make herself small. "Let me explain something to you," he said, his voice measured and calm. "You clean. You dust. You do laundry. These are important jobs, and I'm sure you do them well. But you don't understand the complexities of my business. Conversations you might overhear. They're not what they seem. There are codes, implications, layers you couldn't possibly understand." "I understood perfectly," Priscilla said, her voice hardening. "He said, the old man has become a liability. He said Thursday night, at the restaurant. He said the Russians are offering triple for the Eastern Territories. He said after Thursday, everything would be his." Rolando's expression flickered. Just for a second, she saw something that might have been doubt. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by the same patronizing patience. Italian is a poetic language, he said. Metaphors, exaggerations. It's how we talk. You heard a business discussion and misunderstood it. That's all. The dismissal in his voice was absolute. Not angry, not threatened. Just done with the conversation, ready to return to the papers on his desk and the world that made sense to him. Priscilla felt something crack inside her chest. Not just disappointment, but a deeper pain. The ache of being so thoroughly unseen that even her attempt to save his life was treated as an inconvenience. "Mr. Greco," she tried once more, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm begging you to listen. Check his ledgers. Watch him on Thursday. Please. I'm not making this up." Rolando sighed, and in that sigh was everything. His exhaustion, his certainty, his complete inability to conceive that this woman, this invisible woman, might know something he didn't. "I appreciate your concern," he said in the tone one uses to end a conversation. "But Enzo is not your concern. Stick to what you know. Stick to your job." He turned back toward his desk, the conversation over in his mind. Priscilla stood there for 3 heartbeats, feeling the weight of his dismissal settle over her like a familiar coat. This was what invisibility felt like. Not just being unseen, but being so thoroughly discounted that even your voice, when you finally found it, made no sound at all. "I know my job," she said quietly to his back. "I've been doing it for 3 years. 3 years in your home, Mr. Greco. You've never once asked my name until tonight." He paused but didn't turn around. "Good night," she said and walked out. In the hallway, Priscilla pressed her back against the wall, her whole body shaking. She'd tried. God help her, she'd tried. She'd found her voice, used it, and it hadn't mattered. The invisible woman had dared to speak, and the powerful man had simply looked through her. She thought about the ledger photo on her phone. She thought about Thursday night. She thought about what it meant to have knowledge no one would believe. In the study, Rolando stood motionless, staring at the papers on his desk without seeing them. That flicker of doubt returned, more persistent now. The old man has become a liability. Those words, specifically, they echoed uncomfortably in his mind. He shook his head, annoyed with himself. Enzo was family. 15 years of loyalty, of trust. What did a maid know about any of it? But as he sat back down, he couldn't quite shake the image of her face, the conviction in her eyes, the certainty in her voice. The way she'd said his name like a woman who knew she was about to be dismissed but spoke anyway. "You've never once asked my name until tonight." Rolando pushed the thought away and returned to his papers. But the words kept echoing, unwelcome and persistent, like a warning bell he couldn't quite silence. In her small room, Priscilla sat on the edge of her bed and called her daughter. "Mom? It's late. Everything okay?" Zoe's voice was warm, concerned. "Everything's fine, baby. I just wanted to hear your voice. You sound weird. What's wrong?" Priscilla closed her eyes. "Nothing. I'm proud of you. For being brave. For using your voice. Never stop doing that, okay?" "Mom, you're scaring me." "Don't be scared. Just promise me. Promise you'll never let anyone make you invisible." There was a pause. "I promise. But Mom, you know you're not invisible, right? You matter. Your voice matters." Priscilla smiled through tears. "I love you, Zoe." "Love you too, Mom. Get some sleep." After hanging up, Priscilla lay in the darkness and wondered if Thursday would come and go without incident, if she'd been wrong, if Rolando's certainty was justified. But in her gut, in the place where truth lived before words could shape it, she knew. She knew he was going to die. And she knew he'd never see it coming. Wednesday morning arrived with gray clouds that matched Priscilla's mood. She moved through the estate like she always had, invisible, efficient, present but not seen. The conversation with Rolando felt like a dream now, something that had happened to someone else in some other life. She cleaned the breakfast room while the captains ate, their voices a low rumble of business she no longer tried to decode. Enzo sat at Rolando's right hand, as always. He was a handsome man in his late 40s, with silver threading through his dark hair and the kind of charisma that made people lean in when he spoke. Watching him laugh at something Rolando said, watching the ease between them, Priscilla felt a wave of doubt. Maybe she had misunderstood. Maybe Rolando was right, and she'd heard metaphors and codes her untrained ears couldn't properly interpret. Maybe she was just a maid who'd overstepped. "More coffee, Enzo," he said without looking at her, holding out his cup. She poured, her hands steady despite the churning in her stomach. He didn't glance her way. None of them did. She was the coffee pot, the hand that poured, not a person who might have ears. Intelligence agency. "Thursday night's all set," Enzo said casually to Rolando. "Reservation at Giordano's for 8. I'll have the car ready at 7:30. "Good," Rolando replied, glancing at his phone. "The Bratva representative will meet us there?" "Exactly as planned." Priscilla's hand trembled slightly, and a drop of coffee spilled onto the white tablecloth. Enzo glanced at the stain with mild annoyance but still didn't look at her face. "Careful," he said to the space around her. "Sorry, sir," she whispered, quickly blotting the spill. She finished her rounds and retreated to the kitchen, her heart pounding. Giordano's. Thursday. 8 o'clock. The details lined up perfectly with what she'd overheard. But Rolando's certainty had infected her with doubt. What if she was wrong? What if she caused some terrible misunderstanding? What if she was right, and nobody believed her? Maria, the head housekeeper, found her standing at the sink, staring at nothing. "You okay, Priscilla? You look sick." "I'm fine," Priscilla lied. "Just tired." Maria studied her with the sharp eyes of a woman who'd spent 40 years reading people. "Whatever it is, keep your head down. That's how we survive in houses like this. We see nothing, we hear nothing, we know nothing. You understand?" Priscilla met her eyes. "What if seeing nothing makes you part of something terrible?" Maria's expression hardened. "Then you live with it. Like the rest of us. You got a daughter to think about, Priscilla. Don't forget that." The word settled over her like a lead blanket. Maria was right. Priscilla had responsibilities that went beyond conscience. She had bills to pay, a daughter's future to protect. Speaking up once had gotten her nowhere. Speaking up again would likely get her fired, or worse. She thought about the photo of the ledger on her phone. Evidence nobody wanted to see. Truth nobody would believe. That afternoon, she cleaned Rolando's study while he worked at his desk. The silence between them was thick with everything unsaid. She dusted shelves, emptied the wastebasket, moved through her tasks with mechanical precision. "Priscilla," he said suddenly. She froze, surprised he'd remembered her name. "Sir." He didn't look up from his papers. "About Monday night." "I wasn't trying to be dismissive." "It's fine, sir." "No, listen." He set down his pen, but still didn't meet her eyes. "In my position, I have to be careful. People try to manipulate me, turn me against my own people. I can't afford to second-guess the men I've trusted for years based on misunderstandings." "I understand, sir." "Do you?" Now he looked at her, and there was something almost pleading in his expression. "Enzo is my brother. More than blood. He's been with me through everything. My wife's death, the wars with the Irish, the expansion into New Jersey. He saved my life 3 times. 3 times, Priscilla. She nodded slowly, understanding what he was really saying. Don't make me doubt him. Don't make me question the foundation of everything I've built. I hope I'm wrong, sir, she said quietly. I truly do. Something flickered in his eyes. Gratitude, maybe, or relief. Thank you. She left the study feeling hollowed out. She'd given him an exit, a way to keep believing in his world. And he'd taken it gratefully, because doubt was more terrifying than danger. Thursday arrived too quickly. Priscilla worked her morning shift in a fog of dread. She watched Rolando prepare for the evening, watched him joke with Enzo about the meeting, watched the terrible machinery of trust and betrayal grind toward its inevitable conclusion. At 6 o'clock, her shift ended. She should have left, should have gone home to her daughter, should have let whatever was going to happen simply happen. Instead, she sat in her car in the staff parking area, staring at her phone. She could call the police. But what would she say? I overheard a conversation in Italian about a mafia boss being killed? They'd laugh. Or worse, they'd investigate her, and she'd lose everything. She could call Rolando again, try once more to warn him. But he'd made his choice. He'd chosen belief in Enzo over belief in her. At 7:30, Rolando's black Mercedes pulled out of the garage, Rolando in the back, Enzo driving. 2 security cars followed, or at least, they were supposed to be security. Priscilla made a decision that defied all logic and self-preservation. She started her 10-year-old Honda and followed, staying far back, her hands sweating on the steering wheel. Giordano's was in Little Italy, an old-school Italian restaurant that had been there for 60 years. The kind of place where the mafia felt at home, where the owner knew to disappear when certain conversations needed to happen. Priscilla parked a block away and waited, feeling ridiculous and terrified in equal measure. What was she doing? What could she possibly do? 45 minutes passed. Then she heard it, a sound she'd only heard in movies but recognized instantly. Gunfire. Rapid, professional, unmistakable. People on the street screamed and scattered. Priscilla's hands gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles went white. More shots. Then silence. Then sirens in the distance, growing closer. She sat frozen, watching the restaurant's entrance. People were running out, panicked. And then she saw him, Rolando stumbling, his left shoulder dark with blood, supported by one of his men. Not Enzo. Someone else. They rushed him into a car that screeched away before the police arrived. Enzo was nowhere to be seen. Priscilla drove home in a daze, her whole body shaking. She'd been right. God help her, she'd been right. And 2 men were dead. She'd learn later from the news that 2 of Rolando's bodyguards had been killed in the ambush. She'd tried to stop it. She'd used her voice, and it had changed nothing. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept seeing Rolando's face in her mind. His certainty, his trust, his absolute inability to believe that the ground beneath him might not be solid. Her phone rang at 3 in the morning. Unknown number. Hello. Her voice was hoarse. Miss Kings, this is Antonio Greco. I work for Mr. Rolando Greco. He's asked me to inform you that your services are no longer needed at the estate. Someone will collect your things and drop them off tomorrow. The line went dead. Priscilla sat in the darkness, holding her silent phone, feeling the weight of being right settle into her bones like frost. She'd spoken up. She'd tried to save him. And for her trouble, she'd lost her job. The invisible woman had dared to see, to speak, to matter. And the world had reminded her exactly what happened to people who forgot their place. She thought about her daughter, about the bills coming due, about the rent check she couldn't write now. She thought about Rolando Greco, alive but wounded, probably spinning the attack in his mind as proof of Russian aggression, not internal betrayal. She thought about Enzo, wherever he was, who just tried to kill his best friend and would likely try again. And she thought about silence. How heavy it was, how safe it had kept her for so long, how loudly it echoed now that she'd broken it. In the morning, she'd have to tell Zoe she'd been fired. She'd have to figure out how to survive without the income that paid for everything. But tonight, in the dark, Priscilla Kings allowed herself one moment of bitter clarity. She'd been right, and being right had cost her everything. And tomorrow, Rolando Greco would still trust Enzo Catalano. Some blindness, she realized, was chosen. The call came at 6 the next morning, jarring Priscilla from the thin sleep she'd finally fallen into. "Miss Kings, this is Antonio again." The voice was strained, urgent. "Disregard yesterday's message. Mr. Greco needs you at the estate." "Nah. It's an emergency. I was fired." "You weren't fired. There was a miscommunication. Please. He's asking for you specifically." Priscilla sat up in bed, confused and wary. "What's going on?" "Just come. Please." 20 minutes later, still wearing yesterday's jeans and a hastily pulled-on sweater, Priscilla drove through the estate gates. The place had transformed overnight into a fortress. Armed guards everywhere. Security cameras that had always been present now felt actively watchful. The ease of Wednesday morning had been replaced by paranoid tension. Antonio met her at the door, a thin man in his 60s with worry etched into every line of his face. "Thank God you came," he said, leading her quickly through the house. "He won't go to the hospital. He won't let our usual doctor near him. He thinks everyone's compromised. He's been asking for you since midnight." "Why me?" Antonio stopped, looked at her with something between desperation and respect. "Because you're the only person who tried to warn him. The only one he thinks he can trust right now." They climbed the stairs to Rolando's bedroom, a room Priscilla had cleaned 100 times but never entered while he was in it. Antonio knocked softly. "It's me. I have Priscilla. Send her in. Alone." Antonio opened the door, gave Priscilla an encouraging nod, and left her standing at the threshold. The bedroom was large but surprisingly understated. Expensive but not ostentatious. Rolando sat propped against the headboard, his shirt off, his left shoulder wrapped in blood-soaked bandages that looked like they'd been applied by an amateur. His face was gray with pain, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion and something else. Fear, maybe, or the first cracks of shattered certainty. "Close the door," he said. She did, her heart hammering. This was intimate in a way that felt dangerous. Not sexually, but in the raw vulnerability of it. A powerful man, wounded and alone, trusting her with his life because everyone else had become suspect. "I need you to change the bandage," he said. Antonio tried, but his hands shake. "And I can't trust bringing anyone else in. Not until I know who was involved. Mr. Greco, I'm not a nurse. I know what you are." He met her eyes. "You're the woman who tried to save my life. And I'm the fool who didn't listen." The admission hung in the air between them. Priscilla moved slowly into the room, approaching the bed like one might approach a wounded animal. Carefully, respectfully, aware of the danger. "There's a first aid kit in the bathroom," he said. "Antibiotics, clean bandages, everything you need." Antonio stocked it. She retrieved the supplies and returned, setting them on the nightstand. Her hands were steadier than she expected as she sat on the edge of the bed. "This is going to hurt," she said. "Everything hurts right now." She began unwrapping the old bandages slowly, carefully. The wound underneath was ugly. A bullet had torn through the muscle of his left shoulder, missing bone by inches. Someone had cleaned it and attempted to close it with butterfly stitches, but it needed proper medical attention. You should be in a hospital, Priscilla said. Hospitals have records. Records can be accessed. I can't risk anyone knowing where I am or how badly I'm hurt. He winced as she pulled away the last layer of gauze. Not until I understand what happened. What happened is what I told you would happen. The words came out sharper than she intended. Your capo tried to kill you. Rolando's jaw tightened. Enzo wasn't there. He called 2 minutes before, said he had car trouble, told me to go ahead with the security team. When the shooting started. He stopped, breathing through pain as she cleaned the wound. It was my own men. 2 of them. They opened fire on the others first, then turned their guns on me. Someone pushed me down, saved my life. But Marco and Giovanni died protecting me from our own people. His voice cracked on the names. Priscilla worked in silence, giving him space for grief. Enzo called after, Rolando continued. Crying, devastated, saying he should have been there. Saying if he'd been in the car, maybe he could have stopped it. He sounded broken. He sounded like a man establishing his alibi, Priscilla said quietly. Rolando's eyes flashed. You don't know him. No, sir. I don't. But I know what I heard. She applied antibiotic ointment with gentle fingers, then began rewrapping the wound with clean bandages. The intimacy of the act, touching his bare skin, tending his vulnerability, created a strange closeness. She could feel him watching her face as she worked. Why did you come back? He asked. After I dismissed you. After what I said. Why help me now? Priscilla secured the bandage and sat back, meeting his eyes directly for the first time. Because staying quiet makes you part of the killing, she said, echoing her own words from nights ago. I told you that already. My principles don't change just because you didn't listen. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or the beginning of understanding. What's your last name? He asked suddenly. Kings. Priscilla Kings. He said it slowly, like he was memorizing it. You have family? A daughter. Zoe. She's 19 in college. Just the 2 of you? Just us. Her father left when she was 2. We've done fine. Rolando nodded slowly. My wife died 6 years ago. Cancer. We never had children. He paused. I always thought the family, the organization, was enough. That brotherhood could replace blood. Sometimes it can, Priscilla said carefully. But sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who can hurt us most. Because we give them access to the tender places. He stared at her for a long moment, and she saw him really seeing her. Not the maid, not the help, but Priscilla Kings, a woman with intelligence and history and her own hard-won wisdom. I was wrong, he said finally. Monday night, in my study. I was wrong to dismiss you. Yes, sir. You were. The directness of her response surprised him into a brief, pained smile. You don't mince words. I spent 3 years mincing words. 3 years being invisible. When I finally spoke up, you taught me that being seen doesn't guarantee being heard. She stood, gathering the bloody bandages. But I'm done being invisible, Mr. Greco. Even if it costs me everything. Call me Rolando. She paused at that, understanding the significance. In his world, first names meant equality, meant trust. Are you sure you want that? She asked. Earlier this morning, someone told me I was fired. He grimaced. That was... Antonio was trying to protect you. He thought if you were officially terminated, Enzo's people wouldn't see you as a threat. I never authorized it. But Enzo thinks I'm gone? Everyone does. Priscilla processed that. Then maybe that's good. Maybe I'm safer invisible after all. No. Rolando's voice was firm. You were right. Being invisible didn't keep you safe. It just made people think they could ignore you. But I'm not ignoring you anymore. I need your help, Priscilla. I need someone I can trust. Why do you trust me? Because you had nothing to gain by warning me. You risked your job, your safety, everything. For what? To save a man who'd never bothered to learn your name. He shook his head. That's not manipulation. That's character. Priscilla felt something unfold in her chest. Not gratitude exactly, but a recognition of her own worth reflected back at her. For 3 years, she'd been furniture. In 1 week, she'd become a person. I'll help you, she said. But I need something from you. Name it. No more dismissing me. No more assuming I don't understand because I clean for a living. My grandmother survived Sicily in the 40s. My mother survived the South in the 60s. I survived raising a black daughter alone in a world that doesn't make it easy. I understand survival, Rolando. I understand betrayal. And I damn sure understand when someone's being lied to. He held her gaze, and she saw respect dawn in his eyes. Agreed, he said. Equal partners. At least until we figure out who's trying to kill me and why. I already know why, Priscilla said. She pulled out her phone, opened the photo of Enzo's ledger, and handed it to him. I took this Wednesday. Look at the dates, the amounts, the names. Then tell me I don't understand your world. Rolando stared at the screen, his face going from confusion to recognition to fury. His hand trembled slightly. From pain or rage, she couldn't tell. Where did you get this? From behind a vase in the conference room. Enzo left it there during your meeting. I don't think he meant to. Rolando enlarged the image, studying the numbers with the practiced eye of a man who'd built an empire on attention to detail. These payments, they're going to the Bratva. Not from them to them. And these dates. His voice dropped. These are dates when our shipments were intercepted. When our warehouses were raided. I thought we had leaks. I thought. You thought someone was betraying you, Priscilla finished. You were right. You just never imagined who. He looked up at her, and in his eyes she saw the terrible weight of understanding. 15 years of brotherhood, dissolving in the light of evidence he could no longer deny. He's been selling me out for months, Rolando said quietly. Maybe years. Setting me up, weakening my position, making deals with my enemies. And I never saw it. Because you loved him, Priscilla said simply. Love makes us blind. Rolando's shoulders sagged, and for a moment he looked less like a mafia boss and more like a man carrying the weight of profound betrayal. I need to make calls, he said. Find out who else is involved, who I can still trust. You need to rest, Priscilla countered. That wound needs time to heal. And you need to think carefully about your next move. Enzo doesn't know you survived. Not really. Let him think you're more hurt than you are. Let him get comfortable. Rolando studied her. You're strategic. I'm a single mother who's been outmaneuvered by life more times than I can count. You learn to think 3 steps ahead. Will you stay? The question came out more vulnerable than he probably intended. I mean here. At the estate. I'll have Antonio set up a room in the main house. I need someone I can trust nearby, and right now. He trailed off. Right now I'm all you've got, Priscilla finished. I was going to say, right now, you're the only person who's been honest with me. He paused. But yes. You're all I've got. Priscilla thought about Zoe, about the rent, about the job she'd almost lost. She thought about the danger of staying close to a man that powerful people wanted dead. Then she thought about her grandmother's voice. Sometimes the right thing is the dangerous thing. That's when you know it matters. I'll stay, she said. But Rolando? Yes. Next time I tell you something, you listen. We clear. For the first time since she'd entered the room, he smiled. Really smiled, with genuine warmth. Crystal clear. Priscilla Kings. Crystal clear. The room Antonio prepared for Priscilla was on the second floor, 3 doors down from Rolando's suite. It was larger than her entire apartment, a guest bedroom with cream-colored walls, a 4-poster bed, and windows that overlooked the estate's gardens. She felt like an imposter in it. She called Zoe that evening, keeping her voice light and normal. Mom, where are you? You sound echoey. I'm staying at the estate for a few days. Mr. Greco needs extra help right now. The Mafia boss? Zoe's tone shifted, protective and worried. Mom, is that safe? It's fine, baby. I promise. How was your constitutional law exam? They talked for 20 minutes, Zoe's voice grounding Priscilla in the world beyond these walls. A world of college classes and study groups and normal concerns. When they hung up, Priscilla felt the weight of the decision she'd made. She was in this now, for better or worse. Over the next 3 days, a rhythm emerged. Priscilla changed Rolando's bandages twice daily, her touch becoming more confident as the wound slowly began healing. Between those sessions, she helped Antonio manage the household while Rolando worked from his bedroom, making careful calls to allies he still trusted, trying to map the extent of Enzo's betrayal. The estate remained on lockdown. Enzo called twice a day, his voice filled with concern, asking when he could visit, when Rolando would be ready to meet. Rolando put him off with excuses. The wound was worse than expected. He needed rest. The doctors advised isolation. He's getting anxious, Rolando said Friday evening as Priscilla rewrapped his shoulder. The wound was healing well, the edges knitting together. He keeps pushing to see me. Good, Priscilla said. Anxious people make mistakes. Where did you learn to think like this? She smiled slightly. You want the real answer? Always. My grandmother, Antonella Russo. She taught me that survival is an art form. Rolando leaned back against the headboard, interested. Tell me about her. Priscilla secured the bandage and sat back, surprised by the request. In 3 years, no one in this house had asked her about herself. Now this man, this complicated, dangerous man, wanted to know her history. Nana was born in Palermo in 1929, Priscilla began, settling into the chair beside the bed. Her father worked the docks. Her mother died when she was young. She grew up during the war, saw terrible things. After the war, everything was chaos. She was 17 when she met my grandfather. Who was he? A black American soldier, part of the occupation forces. His name was James Kings. Priscilla smiled at the memory of the photos she'd seen. Nana said he was the most beautiful man she'd ever seen. He had these kind eyes and hands that could fix anything. They fell in love fast, the way you do when the world's still burning. Her family approved? Priscilla laughed, a sound with edges. Her father tried to kill him. Literally. Came at him with a knife. James disarmed him without hurting him, then asked properly for Nana's hand. In Sicilian. He'd learned it to court her. She paused, remembering. They said no, of course. A black man and a Sicilian girl in 1947? Impossible. But they married anyway. They eloped. Came to America, Alabama, where James was from. And that. Priscilla shook her head. That was its own kind of hell. The white folks hated her for marrying black. The black folks didn't trust her because she was white. even though Sicilians weren't considered really white back then. They were caught between worlds. Rolando listened with an intensity that made her feel truly heard. How did they survive? By being smarter than everyone, underestimating them. Nana opened a restaurant, started small, cooking out of their apartment. She made Sicilian food, but she also learned to make soul food from the black women who slowly started trusting her. She created something new. Fusion before fusion was even a word. And she taught me that being underestimated is a weapon if you know how to use it. She sounds formidable. She was. She outlived my grandfather by 20 years. Raised my mother alone after he died in Vietnam. Taught her to be strong, to be smart, to never let anyone make her small. Priscilla's voice softened. When my ex left me with a 2-year-old, Nana was the one who taught me I'd survive. She'd say, "Priscilla, we come from women who crossed oceans and survived wars. A man leaving is nothing. You'll do more than survive. You'll thrive." Did you? Rolando asked quietly. Thrive. Priscilla considered the question. I survived well. There's dignity in that. I kept a roof over our heads, kept Zoe fed and clothed and loved. I worked 3 jobs sometimes. Cleaning houses during the day, waitressing at night, doing online data entry after Zoe went to bed. I was so tired I sometimes forgot what it felt like not to be tired. That's more than survival. That's strength. Maybe. But somewhere in all that surviving, I forgot I was supposed to be a whole person, not just a provider. I forgot I had a voice that mattered beyond "yes, ma'am" and "right away, sir." She met his eyes. Working here these past 3 years, it paid better than my other jobs. Better hours. But it also made me smaller. I let it make me smaller. Why? Because that's what you do when you need something more than you need your dignity. You make yourself fit the space you're allowed. Rolando was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry, he said finally. For my part in that. For never seeing you. You weren't trying to be cruel. That almost makes it worse. You just didn't think about it. Didn't think about me. No, he agreed. I didn't. And I should have. The admission sat between them, honest and uncomfortable. Your turn, Priscilla said. Tell me about your wife. Rolando's face changed. Grief still fresh even after 6 years. Isabella. She was a teacher. 2nd grade. We met at a community center where she volunteered. I was there because... He paused. Because I was pretending to be legitimate, investing in the neighborhood to clean money. But she didn't know that. She just saw a man interested in helping kids. How long before she found out what you really were? 6 months. Someone told her, a rival trying to scare her away. She confronted me, furious. Called me every name in Italian and English. He smiled at the memory. I thought she'd leave. Instead, she said, "You want to help kids? Then actually help them. Use your dirty money to build clean things. Make your sin into something beautiful." So I did. Funded schools, community centers, scholarships. She made me want to be better. Did you love her? More than life. She was my conscience, my compass. She kept me human in a world that rewards monsters. His voice cracked. When the cancer came, I threw money at it. The best doctors, experimental treatments, everything. But money can't buy mercy. She suffered for 18 months, and all my power meant nothing. Priscilla reached out without thinking, placing her hand over his. I'm sorry. After she died, I just shut down. Threw myself into the business. Trusted my captains to be my family because I couldn't bear to be vulnerable again. I thought if I kept everything transactional, kept emotional distance, I'd be safe from more loss. He looked at their joined hands. But that's not living. That's just waiting to die. Is that why you couldn't see Enzo's betrayal? Because you needed him to be loyal? Yes. He was there through Isabella's death. Held me when I broke. I thought that kind of bond was unbreakable. Rolando's jaw tightened. I gave him everything. My trust, my secrets, my love. And he sold it all for what? Territory? Money? The Bratva's approval. Power, Priscilla said simply. Power makes people do terrible things. And sometimes the people closest to power want it most of all. Rolando looked at her with something like wonder. How are you not bitter? After everything you've survived, abandonment, poverty, being invisible, how do you still have this much clarity? Because bitterness is heavy, and I've carried enough weight in my life. Clarity is lighter. She smiled slightly. Also, Nana used to say, the world will try to make you small and angry. Don't give them the satisfaction. Be big and clear instead. Your grandmother was a wise woman. She was. I wish you could have met her. She'd have liked you, the real you under all the power and posturing. She could always see through people's armor to the human underneath. What would she think of you being here? Helping me? Priscilla thought about it. She'd say I was doing what Russo women do, surviving by seeing clearly and choosing strategically. She'd also warn me to be careful, that powerful men are dangerous even when they're grateful. Am I dangerous to you? Rolando asked, his voice low. The question hung in the air, loaded with meanings neither of them was quite ready to name. Dangerous how? Physically? Emotionally? The space between them felt charged suddenly, intimate in a way that had nothing to do with bandage changes and everything to do with two lonely people recognizing each other's hidden selves. Yes, Priscilla said honestly. But not in the way you mean. You're dangerous because you're making me forget why I learned to be invisible in the first place. You're making me remember what it feels like to be seen. Rolando's hand tightened on hers. Would it help if I said you're dangerous to me too? How? Because you're making me remember what it's like to trust someone. To be vulnerable. And in my world, vulnerability gets you killed. Maybe, Priscilla said. Or maybe it's the only thing that makes living worth the risk. They sat like that for a moment, hands joined, eyes locked, both aware they were crossing some invisible line from professional alliance into something more complicated and terrifying. Antonio's knock on the door broke the spell. Sorry to interrupt, he said, entering with a phone. But Enzo's calling again. He's insistent. He says it's urgent. Something about the Bratva demanding a meeting. Rolando took the phone, his face hardening back into the mask of power. But he didn't let go of Priscilla's hand. Put him through, he said. As Enzo's voice filled the room, smooth, concerned, perfectly performed. Priscilla watched Rolando's face and saw the pain there. The grief of watching someone you love reveal themselves as a stranger. The terrible weight of necessary betrayal answered with necessary justice. When the call ended, Rolando looked exhausted. He wants to meet tomorrow, he said. Says the Bratva are getting impatient. Says if I don't show strength soon, they'll move on us while I'm weak. What are you going to do? Rolando looked at her, and in his eyes she saw the man Isabella had loved. The one trying to be better than his circumstances, trying to find honor in a dishonorable world. I'm going to give him what he wants, Rolando said quietly. I'm going to meet with him. And then I'm going to do what has to be done. Priscilla felt her stomach drop. You're going to kill him. He tried to kill me. Killed Marco and Giovanni. Is selling out everything I've built. What choice do I have? I don't know, Priscilla said honestly. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, make sure you can live with it after. Because that weight doesn't leave you. How do you know? Because I watched my mother carry the weight of every compromise she made to keep us alive. I watched it hollow her out until there was nothing left but survival. Priscilla squeezed his hand. Don't let this make you hollow, Rolando. Don't let his betrayal kill the part of you Isabella loved. He stared at her for a long moment, then pulled her closer. Not romantically, but desperately, like a man drowning and she was solid ground. Stay with me, he whispered. Not just tonight. Through whatever comes next. I can't do this alone. Priscilla knew she should pull away, should maintain distance, should protect herself from the inevitable fallout of getting close to a man like this. Instead, she held him. I'm here, she said. I'm not going anywhere. What would you sacrifice to help someone who finally sees you? Even if it means stepping deeper into danger. Tell us in the comments. Saturday morning brought unexpected sunshine, the kind that felt like mockery given what lay ahead. Rolando was healing faster now, able to move without wincing, though Priscilla still insisted on checking his wound each morning. You're a tyrant, he said, but there was warmth in his voice. I'm thorough. There's a difference. They'd spent the night planning, not just for the meeting with Enzo, but for what came after. Rolando had quietly reached out to his most trusted allies, men who'd been with him since the beginning. The picture that emerged was damning. Enzo had been building his own faction within the family for over a year, promising captains more territory, more freedom, more power under his leadership. He was going to take everything, Rolando said, staring at the evidence spread across his desk. And I handed him the keys. You trusted him. That's not weakness, it's human. In my world, human gets you killed. Then maybe, Priscilla said carefully, your world needs to change. He looked at her surprised. You think it's that simple? No. I think it's that hard. But I also think Isabella was right. You can use your power to build something better. Something that doesn't require you to stop being human. Rolando stood, moving to the window. The meeting is tonight. After that, things will move quickly. There'll be violence, Priscilla. Retribution. It's unavoidable. I know. You should leave. Go home to Zoe. Stay clear of what's coming. Is that what you want? He turned to face her. What I want is irrelevant. What's safe? I didn't ask what was safe. I asked what you wanted. The directness of the question seemed to catch him off guard. He crossed the room slowly, stopping in front of her, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. I want you to stay, he said quietly. Not because I need protection or strategy, but because when you're here, I remember there's more to life than survival and revenge. You make me want to be the man Isabella believed I could be. Priscilla's breath caught. Rolando. I know this is complicated. I know I'm dangerous and damaged and probably the last person you should. She stopped him by placing her hand on his chest, over his heart. You're also kind when you don't have to be. Honest when it costs you. And brave enough to admit when you're wrong. Those aren't small things. What are we doing? He asked, covering her hand with his. I don't know, she admitted. But I know I'm tired of being afraid. Tired of making myself small. For 3 years, I was invisible in your house. Now I'm the most visible person in your life. That's terrifying. But it's also alive. I feel alive, Rolando. So do I, he whispered. For the first time since Isabella died, I feel alive. They stood like that, the moments stretching between them, both aware they were standing at a precipice. Then Rolando leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away, and kissed her forehead with such tenderness it brought tears to her eyes. "After tonight," he said, "after this is finished, I want to take you to dinner. Somewhere nice. Somewhere I can court you properly, the way you deserve." Priscilla smiled through her tears. "Are you asking me on a date, Mr. Greco? I'm asking if you'd give a broken old mafia boss a chance to prove he can be more than his worst choices." "You're not broken. You're healing. There's a difference." She squeezed his hand. "And yes, after tonight, I'd like that very much." The rest of the day passed in careful preparation. Rolando's loyal men arrived in small groups. 8 captains he trusted, men who'd been with him long enough to remember what the family stood for before Enzo's corruption. They met in the basement, a secure room where strategy became action. Priscilla stayed upstairs, helping Antonio manage the logistics, but she could feel the tension building. Men preparing for war carried it in their shoulders, their clipped words, their ritualistic checking of weapons. "You care for him," Antonio said suddenly as they prepared coffee for the meeting. Priscilla didn't pretend to misunderstand. "Is that a problem?" "No. It's a relief. He's been alone too long. Lonely people make desperate choices." Antonio smiled slightly. "You're good for him. You remind him he's human. What if being human gets him killed? Then at least he'll have lived first. That's more than most men in this life can say." The meeting was set for 8 o'clock at the estate. Neutral ground, Rolando had said, where he could control the environment. Enzo arrived exactly on time, flanked by 2 of his men. He looked concerned, solicitous, the perfect picture of a loyal second-in-command worried about his boss. Priscilla watched from the security monitors in Rolando's study as Enzo embraced him in the foyer, saw the performed grief on his face as he examined Rolando's healing wound. "Brother, you should be in a hospital," Enzo said, his voice carrying through the audio feed. "I'm fine. Just needed rest. The Bratva are pressing for a meeting. They want to discuss territories, make sure we're not weak after the attack." "Of course they do." Rolando's voice was neutral, giving nothing away. "Let's talk in the conference room." Priscilla's heart pounded as she watched them walk down the hallway. Rolando's men were positioned strategically throughout the house, invisible but present. This was the moment of truth. In the conference room, Rolando gestured for Enzo to sit. "Before we discuss the Bratva, I need to understand something. The men who shot me, Carmine and Luca, they were your recruits." Enzo's expression flickered. Just for a second. "They were compromised. The Bratva must have gotten to them. That's what I thought at first." Rolando pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. "Then I found these. Bank transfers. Payments from your personal accounts to offshore accounts in their names. Dating back 8 months. Enzo opened the folder, his face carefully blank. "This is forged. Someone's trying to turn us against each other." "Don't." Rolando's voice was ice. "Don't insult me with lies. I have the ledgers, Enzo. The real ones. I know about the deals with the Bratva. I know you've been selling our territory piece by piece. I know you arranged the hit. The mask fell away." Enzo's face hardened into something cold and calculating. "You were supposed to die at that restaurant." "I know." "Then you know this conversation ends badly for one of us." "It ends badly for you," Rolando said quietly. "It was always going to." Enzo stood, his men reaching for weapons. But Rolando's men emerged from the shadows. 8 to Enzo's 2. The mathematics of betrayal made clear. "You can't do this," Enzo said, fury breaking through. 15 years. Rolando. 15 years I stood beside you. I earned the right to lead. You earned nothing but my trust, and you sold it. Your trust. Enzo's laugh was bitter. You trusted your dead wife's memory more than you trusted the living. You trusted your precious honor code more than you trusted ambition. The world changed, brother, and you couldn't see it. I was trying to save us. By killing me? By taking what you were too weak to hold. The words hung in the air like poison. Rolando's face was carved stone, but Priscilla could see the pain beneath, the agony of hearing someone you loved reveal their true contempt. Take him, Rolando said quietly. That's when Enzo made his move. He lunged not for Rolando but for the door, surprising everyone. He was fast. Faster than a man his age should be, and he almost made it. Almost. Antonio stepped into his path, and Enzo, desperate, grabbed him, used him as a shield. A gun appeared in Enzo's hand, pressed to Antonio's temple. Let me walk out, Enzo said, backing toward the window. Or the old man dies. Priscilla watched from upstairs, her heart in her throat. This was spiraling, falling apart. She saw Rolando's face on the monitor, saw him calculating, saw him about to give Enzo what he wanted to save Antonio. She couldn't let that happen. Without thinking, Priscilla ran. Down the stairs, through the hallway, into the conference room before anyone could stop her. Wait, she called out. Every head turned. Enzo's eyes widened in shock. You? You're supposed to be gone. You're the maid who warned him, Priscilla finished. The one you didn't think mattered enough to kill. Priscilla, get out, Rolando commanded, fear cracking his voice. But she kept walking forward, hands visible, unthreatening. He won't shoot Antonio. Antonio's his only leverage. But me? I'm nobody. Just the help. Shoot me and you lose nothing. What are you doing? Enzo hissed. Giving you a choice. Take me instead. Let Antonio go. Priscilla, no. Rolando started forward, but his men held him back. Enzo's gun swung toward her, his face a mask of rage and confusion. You stupid woman. You think this changes anything? I think, Priscilla said calmly, still walking closer, that you're a coward who hides behind old men and attacks from shadows. I think you've already lost, and you know it. His finger tightened on the trigger. Time stretched. Priscilla saw her life flash. Not in images, but in feelings. Zoe's laughter. Her grandmother's hands. Rolando's eyes finally seeing her. The shot never came. Antonio, in a move born of 60 years of survival instinct, drove his elbow back into Enzo's ribs. The gun went off, wild, hitting ceiling. Rolando's men swarmed. In seconds, Enzo was on the ground, disarmed, defeated. Rolando reached Priscilla in 3 strides, pulling her against him, his whole body shaking. Don't you ever. He couldn't finish. Just held her, his face buried in her hair. I'm okay, she whispered. I'm okay. But when he pulled back to look at her, his face had changed. The warmth from this morning was gone, replaced by cold fury. You could have died. Do you understand that? You could have. He pushed away from her. This is exactly why you should have stayed away. Why I should have kept you away. Rolando. No. This is my world, Priscilla. Violence and death and people I love getting hurt because of me. You don't belong in this. You never should have been here. The words were meant to push her away. Protection disguised as rejection. But they landed like blows. So what? Priscilla asked, her voice shaking. I go back to being invisible? Back to being someone who doesn't matter. You matter too much. That's the problem. No, she said, tears streaming down her face. The problem is you're scared. You're terrified that if you let yourself care about someone again, You'll lose them like you lost Isabella. So you're pushing me away before life can do it for you. Maybe I am. But at least you'll be alive. And alone. And small. And voiceless. Is that what you want for me? I want you safe. I want to be seen, she said. For once in my life, I want to matter to someone. But I guess that was stupid. I guess I should have stayed invisible after all. She turned and walked out, her vision blurred with tears, her heart cracking with each step. Behind her, Rolando stood frozen, watching her go, his own heart breaking because he knew what he'd done. He'd given her voice, made her visible, made her matter, and then snatched it all away because his fear was greater than his courage. In the silence after she left, Antonio spoke quietly. You're making a mistake. I'm keeping her alive. No, Antonio said. You're breaking both your hearts to avoid the risk of maybe, someday, losing her. That's not protection. That's cowardice. Rolando looked at Enzo on the floor, then at the door Priscilla had disappeared through. For the first time in his life, he didn't know which betrayal hurt more, Enzo's treachery or his own. Priscilla made it to her room before the sobs came. Deep, wrenching sounds that felt like they were tearing her apart from the inside. She'd been right there, standing at the edge of something real, something transformative. And he'd shoved her back into darkness because his fear was louder than his heart. She packed her small bag with shaking hands. She'd call an Uber. Go home. Hold Zoe. Return to the life she knew. Small and safe and suffocating. Her phone buzzed. Zoe. Mom, you okay? You sound weird when we talked earlier. Priscilla stared at the message, tears blurring the screen. What would she tell her daughter? That she'd been foolish enough to believe a mafia boss could see her as more than help? That she'd confused gratitude with connection? No. That wasn't fair. What Rolando felt was real. She'd seen it in his eyes, felt it in his touch. His fear was real too, but that didn't make his feelings false. She typed back, I'm okay, baby. Learning some hard lessons about bravery. You're the bravest person I know, Mom. The words hit her like lightning. The bravest person. Her daughter thought she was brave. But bravery wasn't just speaking up once and then retreating when it got hard. Bravery was standing firm even when you were terrified. Even when the person you cared about pushed you away. Priscilla set down her phone, her mind racing. Rolando was downstairs right now, probably dealing with Enzo, probably telling himself he'd done the right thing by protecting her through rejection. But what if he needed protecting from his own fear? Before she could talk herself out of it, she headed back downstairs. The conference room was empty now. Enzo had been taken somewhere else. She found Rolando in his study, alone, staring at nothing. I thought you left, he said without looking up. I tried. Couldn't do it. She closed the door behind her. Because I realized something. You're right. Your world is dangerous. People you love die or betray you. Opening your heart is a risk. But Rolando, living without risk isn't living. It's just waiting to die. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You lost Isabella and it almost destroyed you. The idea of losing someone else terrifies you so much that you'd rather hurt them first. Push them away. Stay alone. She moved closer. But I'm not Isabella. I'm not fragile. I'm the granddaughter of a woman who survived war and prejudice and poverty. I'm a woman who raised a child alone and kept us both alive through sheer will. I don't need you to protect me from your world. I need you to trust me to choose it for myself. He finally looked at her, his eyes red-rimmed. What if I can't keep you safe? What if you don't have to? What if we keep each other safe? She took his hands. I'm scared too, Rolando. Scared of being hurt, of choosing wrong, of mattering to someone and losing them. But I'm more scared of going back to invisible. Of never knowing what this could be. Priscilla. I love you, she said simply. I don't know when it happened. Maybe when you finally said my name. Maybe when you held my hand while I changed your bandages. Maybe when you looked at me like I was a whole person instead of just hands that cleaned. But I love you. And I'm choosing you. The question is, are you brave enough to choose me back? Rolando stood frozen, every wall he'd built crumbling under the weight of her honesty. Then he pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the only solid thing in a shifting world. I love you too, he whispered against her hair. God help me. I love you so much it terrifies me. Good, she said, tears and laughter mixing. Be terrified. But be terrified with me, not alone. He kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of all the words they hadn't yet learned to say. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. What do we do now? He asked. Now, Priscilla said, we figure out how to live. Really live. Together. 3 months later, the estate felt different. Lighter somehow, despite everything that had happened. Enzo was gone, handed over to Rolando's allies in Sicily to face justice in the old way. The family had been restructured, the Bratva pushed back, territory secured. But the biggest change was invisible to outsiders. Rolando had kept his promise. He'd taken Priscilla to dinner, to a small Italian restaurant where nobody knew his name and they could just be two people learning each other. Then another dinner. And another. Dates that felt like teenage courtship, complete with nervous laughter and held hands and goodnight kisses that left them both wanting more. Zoe had met him. Skeptical at first, protective of her mother. But Rolando had won her over with honesty. I'm not a good man, he'd told her. But I'm trying to be better. And your mother makes me want to try harder. Don't hurt her, Zoe had said. She's been hurt enough. I know. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of her. Now Priscilla stood in Rolando's study. No longer a maid but his partner in both business and life. She'd taken over managing his legitimate enterprises, discovering a talent for organization and strategy that had been buried under years of survival. The community center project is approved, she said, reviewing papers. We break ground next month. Isabella would be proud. Rolando looked up from his desk, love and gratitude clear in his expression. She would. And she'd love you. You're both forces of nature. Priscilla smiled. I talked to Zoe. She got accepted to law school. Full scholarship. That's wonderful. Though I offered to pay. I know. But she wanted to earn it herself. She's stubborn like her mother. Thank God for stubborn women. They save foolish men from themselves. There was a knock at the door. Antonio entered, carrying a small box. This came for you, Priscilla. From Sicily. She opened it carefully. Inside was a letter and a photograph. Her grandmother's handwriting, shaky with age but still elegant. The photo showed a young Antonella and James on their wedding day, both beaming despite the world's disapproval. My dearest Priscilla, the letter read. If you're reading this, I've passed on. But before I go, I want you to know, I see you. I've always seen you. You are brave and brilliant and beautiful, and anyone who doesn't see that is blind. Don't let this world make you small. Love loudly. Live boldly. Make them see you. Your Nana, who loves you across all distances. Priscilla pressed the letter to her chest, tears streaming. Rolando came around the desk and held her. She knew, Priscilla whispered. Even at the end, she knew I needed to hear it. What did she say? That I should love loudly and live boldly. She looked up at him. I think I'm finally doing that. You are. You're teaching me how. He kissed her forehead. I have something for you too. He pulled out a small velvet box. Priscilla's breath caught. It's not what you think, he said quickly, then smiled. I mean, not yet. Not until you're ready. But I wanted you to have this. Inside was a key, ornate, antique, beautiful. It's the key to this house. Your house. Our house if you want it to be. I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet. But I'm asking you to build a life with me. A real life. With doors that open for you, not walls that keep you out. Priscilla took the key, feeling its weight. 3 years ago, she'd cleaned this house as an invisible woman. Now she held the key to it as an equal partner, a loved woman, a person who mattered. Yes, she said simply. Yes to all of it. He pulled her close, and they stood in the study where he'd once dismissed her warning, where he'd almost died from his own blindness. But that was a different life. This was new, imperfect and complicated and sometimes dangerous, but real and alive and theirs. Thank you, Rolando whispered. For what? For not staying invisible. For using your voice even when I didn't want to hear it. For saving me in every way a person can be saved. Priscilla smiled against his chest. You saved me too. You gave me back my voice. No, he said. You always had it. I just finally learned to listen. Outside, the sun set over the estate, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Inside, 2 people who'd started as invisible and blind learned to see each other clearly. Flaws and all, fears and all, perfectly imperfect and holy, beautifully human. Love, Priscilla thought, wasn't about being saved. It was about being seen. Really, truly seen. And choosing to see back. Have you ever had to choose between safety and being truly seen? Between invisibility and voice? Share your story. We'd love to hear it. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more emotional journeys. Because everyone deserves to be seen. Everyone deserves to matter. Including you. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.